This is more of a philosophical question. Uh, we live in a society which rewards success and punishes failure. How do we manage expectations so that we can take more informed risks? I mean, that's a question that we all struggle with in NASA.
Yeah.
Let's see, the question was, how do we manage in a society of zero tolerance for failure? Is that essentially what you're...
Yes.
You want to...
Society
I'll give it
where
a shot.
success is reinforced and
Yeah.
failure we get punished for, and how do we, I guess, again, this whole theme of risk and maybe how is it different from when you started your career? There seems to be a key focus on that.
Yeah, well, I'll take a shot at that one. I think the question is correct, right? I think there is certainly a perception in the agency that every time we push the button and we launch something, whether it's a human spaceflight system or a $50 million technology experiment that's going to fly in space, that has to be successful. That, you know, we've spent too much money, too much time, too much effort. It's front page news, and it can't fail. And in thinking about this a lot, I think we do this to ourselves. I think the engineers of this agency, of which I'm a part, I am one, I think we put ourselves in a box with that thinking. Sure, there have been times when we've failed, and the ramifications have been significant, right? There have been major independent review boards, there have been congressional inquiries, those kinds of things. And it hasn't been fun, right, for anyone who's been involved in those failures, myself included, okay? But that doesn't mean that it's not acceptable to fail. You can take a place, look at DARPA, just as an example, right? Just recently, DARPA flew I think it was about Mach 20, I'm not exactly sure. They flew a hypersonic test vehicle that went about Mach 20. And the headline story in the Washington Post was, DARPA breaks speed record, right? And down in paragraph 4, if you read all the way down, it said, oh, and by the way, they lost the vehicle. Prematurely, they lost the vehicle, right? I think that within the agency, we think, whether it's true or not, we think that the headline would have been reversed. We think the headline would have been, NASA fails. And then down in paragraph 4, it would have said, as they were going for a world speed record, isn't that cool, right? Well, regardless, we can't think that way, all right? We need to change the way we approach these kinds of problems. And over a wide spectrum of activities, failure has to be an acceptable outcome some percentage of the time. Otherwise, we're going to get to the state pretty soon where we don't even launch anything, right? Because the only way I know not to fail at all is to not do our job and to just do endless studies and have meetings and meetings, to discuss things, but to never actually launch. So once again, I'll go back to this tiered risk approach and empowering our engineers and actually making risk-informed trades throughout the design process and managing risk, not mandating a certain risk level, but managing risk, figuring out where the high-risk pieces of that system are and attacking those pieces to mitigate the risk of those pieces failing as much as we can. And then at some point, elevating that to the right level, and that doesn't necessarily mean to the administrator every time, but to the right level where that risk can be assessed and a decision to go can be made. Another thing that we can do is we can actually celebrate our failures. Right? This is not something that NASA typically does. But as I said earlier, every time we fail, we can learn from that failure. And if we're learning, what's wrong with celebrating learning? What's wrong with celebrating the knowledge that we gained from a particular failure that we're then going to apply to a future mission? Not all risks have to be funeral. Not all failures have to result in funerals, is what I'm trying to say. And just to close this out, at least from my perspective, the failure that I was involved with most significantly was the Mars 99 missions. We lost, as I mentioned, we lost the orbiter and the lander and the 2 microprobes that I worked on in that opportunity, in that time frame. It was 2 separate launches. They both made it to Mars. Neither mission was successful. And it was a difficult time afterwards. It was a time of introspection, a time of us figuring out how to fix the program. But Congress didn't cancel the Mars program. And the people that worked on those activities got stronger from that experience and have now brought this nation successes, much more significant, actually, successes than those missions that failed. So sometimes when I think back on the 99 failures, I wonder to myself, were they really failures? Or were they just part of the learning process required to get at the bigger, more complex missions that we all want to do? And I think that's maybe the way the agency needs to think about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I think one of the sources of pride that I think we all should have in working for an agency that's called NASA is that we are held to a standard that's up here with respect to failure. They don't expect NASA to fail. They expect NASA to be good. They expect NASA to be excellent in everything it does. And that should be our source of pride. We are, I agree with Bobby, incredibly hard on ourselves internally in the agency when we do have a failure. Right? If you look at the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, and what the administrator gave us at the time was accept, comply, and embrace all the findings of the accident board. It was almost like mea culpa. We had to beat ourselves a little bit and carry the burden for a while because we had a failure. We've got to teach ourselves and act differently about failures. And I agree that we've got to actually embrace failures from a standpoint of what did they teach us? How are we going forward with that? How are we taking this newfound knowledge and this curiosity that comes from failure and applying it to our next greatest challenges? So I actually very much agree with the way Bobby described it. But be proud of the agency, and when they criticize us for a failure, turn that into a positive. That we work in a particular agency where they don't expect us to fail. They expect us to be this good. And that should be a source of pride.